The hairy man is at the bar.
She called me on the phone one night, and this thing's howling, and this guttural growl. It's like it vibrates when it growls, you feel it. And whatever this was killing the goats, and only taking it. And you can see with the head of it gnawed off. I mean, you can see.
I look out the window and I see someone in the back of the house in the woods, and I'm like, who? I just looked at him and it just kind of was like in shock. I was like, is that a Bigfoot I'm looking at? All black, mind you, from head to toe. I mean, you couldn't see nothing. It was black as coal black. It had to be at least 6 foot tall.
His son saw it, said it's somewhere between 8 and 10 feet tall. It was watching one night as he was riding his four-wheeler around his property.
He said, if you think that's amazing, wait, he says, until the spirits impersonate one of the departed people that you know. Personally, like an uncle or a brother or a sister or something like that. He says that is unique.
And there'd be some kind of creature hollering in the woods off in the distance, and they'd tell us, now y'all stay close to the house today, don't y'all go in the woods, there's a Bob Wowster out there. Now, I know now that those were the roars of like a Sasquatch.
It was standing, it had to be a good 10 feet tall because it was grabbing the top of the mountain and shaking the bar. And my grandfather says to my uncles and stuff, the hairy man is at the bar.
She called me on the phone one night, and this thing's howling, and this guttural growl. It's like it vibrates when it growls, you feel it. And whatever this was killing the goats, and only taking it. And you can see with the head of it gnawed off. I mean, you can see.
I look out the window and I see someone in the back of the house in the woods, and I'm like, who? I just looked at him and it just kind of was like in shock. I was like, is that a Bigfoot I'm looking at? All black, mind you, from head to toe. I mean, you couldn't see nothing. It was black as coal black. It had to be at least 6 foot tall.
So like how
About 5 times, I think the gentleman said, reported to him that they saw one of the Sasquatch coming out of that mine shaft.
I came out one night and didn't turn the light on until I got all the way out of the house. When I shined the light, there was that thing that was exactly the Shunkaworkin.
You could see the limbs moving like something in the top of those trees. We could see what we thought at the time was monkey hands and monkey feet. And you'd see it stick out of those bushes every once in a while.
As I walked towards this thing, all of a sudden, it gave off a roar. Whatever this thing was taller than I was. I am 6'4".
And I asked her, I said, could these be mountain lions? She goes, they don't make mountain lions this big. And mountain lions don't walk on 2 feet. She said, last night, she said, it sounded like Freddy Krueger, you know how he has those knives. She said, it sounded like it drove down the side of our house.
If I were to ask what the scariest thing you've ever heard was, what would it be? Would it be something that happened in the far distant past that inspires terror even today? Or perhaps a more recent story detailing somebody's very own encounters with things that shouldn't exist? Think back to the stories from our youth that used to especially frighten us. Maybe it was stories of Bigfoot attacks, like the incident at Ape Canyon, the Bell Witch haunting in Tennessee, or the infamous Amityville horror. If you're watching this stream, chances are there's probably some story in particular that has stuck with you and left you with an interest in the unknown. Hi, I'm Elijah Henderson. For almost as long as I can remember, I've heard stories of the strange and peculiar. Growing up, my dad Johnny Henderson was deeply fascinated by our mysterious world, and in fact, he himself was no stranger to things of an unusual nature, and had some stories of his own. As a young child, it was his joy to tell me and my sister Gabrielle Henderson about the Beast of Gévaudan, or Sasquatch, the Ica Stones, the Comte de Saint Germain, fiery flying serpents, you name it. Dad was constantly reading, and reading to us. Books were his passion, and it's ours too. So in this inaugural episode of our new podcast, strangely enough, we're going to go over the books that shaped us, that shaped him, and molded this channel. And there may be a surprise or two along the way. So let's jump into it. All right. We're live, friends. How y'all doing? I'm Elijah Henderson.
And I am Gabrielle Henderson. And I suppose our most important question right now is, can you hear us? As it is our first evening dealing with StreamYard.
This is the first time we're working with StreamYard. We're very excited to be here with you on our new podcast, Strangely Enough. Very excited.
We thank everyone so much for tuning in.
We see some nice folk in the room here. Jesse, Julie. Hello, everyone. Bobby, James, Montebank, JKNGA, Sam Burton. Let's see. Suge, Catherine Elaine. Hello, everyone. How y'all doing this evening? Truthy Ruthie. Okay, Sam says he hears us loud and clear, so I guess we are good.
Perfect.
Ooh, we got to take a little bit of a second to kind of settle down and rest because we're running around like a chicken with our heads cut off. The Sabbath just ended a few minutes ago. It's sunset was about 8:07 here in Clarksville, Tennessee. We're strict Seventh-day Adventists, so we try to follow the Sabbath like the Jews did historically, Friday at sunset till Saturday at sunset. And it's just ended, and we're ready to shoot the breeze with y'all and have a good time tonight, hopefully. So this series, strangely enough, how we're going to do it, probably first 2-3 weeks, we're going to have something every Saturday night, if at all possible. And then for the time being, we're probably going to shift into like a bi-weekly format. So, because we don't really have a whole lot of time just to devote to doing this every single week. And also, Gabby has some big news. So she won't be present for the next possibly third one of these. Gabby, you want to tell everybody about that just a little bit?
Yes, I am actually going on vacation. I am going on a road trip along the Pacific Coast Highway. On Wednesday, I am leaving, and we're landing in Portland, Oregon. And we're going to take a road trip all the way down from Portland down to San Diego, California. And I've just been informed by my friend that I'm going with. We are also going to check out some areas in Upper Washington, too. So it will be gone 2 weeks. So I'm looking very much forward to it.
And what's some of the spots you're going to hit while you're up there, Gab, if all goes according to plan?
If all goes according to plan, well, so, do any of you guys know of a little footage called the Patterson footage? Yeah, pretty famous. We are going to be attempting to hit Willow Creek while we are there. And we're going to be hitting a couple of the Bigfoot museums in that area. Another very interesting thing we may get to do is, who knows what the Bohemian Grove Society is?
I definitely know.
You definitely know. You want to touch on that a little bit, Lodja?
Well, as Gabby's brother, it's my job. I'm duty bound to irritate her. And for multiple weeks, I've irritated her hey, while y'all out of town, y'all need to go check out the Bohemian Grove and get a few pictures. We'll do a video while you're all over the place over there, and we'll throw that in there. You can go to the Bohemian Grove. So for multiple weeks, I've been telling her, go to the Bohemian Grove, get some pictures for me. And I think it's about like 40-something minutes from a place they're going to be driving anyway. So it may work out that they may go.
Obviously, we're
We'll
not
see.
going to go in and see the owl. That's dangerous. But we may get to see the gate where people go and protest and where people run surveillance there. Another interesting thing that we may do, don't know yet if we'll get to, is some years ago, years and years, on Monterey Beach, the head of what is seemingly a sea monster washed ashore. People tried to say it was a whale, but what kind of whale has a neck?
Yeah, it was I think like a 20-foot long thing that washed up on the beach. Had a big old head, strange looking thing, and a big, just a thin, skinny neck. And people chimed in and was like, y'all are all idiots. That's a whale. But the same place where that thing washed up on the beach looks just like a plesiosaurus or something. They may possibly be going to see. And I'm not sure. I may have.
That is Monterey Beach, so we are hoping to get to check out that location. And I know there are at least 2 Bigfoot museums we are going to see. I believe one is called the Bigfoot Discovery Museum. I'll have to get back to you on the name of the other. We're going to be visiting the Redwood National Forest. We're even thinking about going to Disneyland, the San Diego Zoo. It should be a blast. And poor Lodge will be here alone for 2 weeks.
I'll be here taking care of Gabby's devil pet pig.
He is a good boy.
He is not a good boy. He hates me and tries to bite me every time.
You're the only person he hates. Why is that?
I don't know, but he's an evil little thing.
Good evening, Keith and Sheila. Thank you for tuning in.
Hey, Keith and Sheila, how y'all doing? Truthy Ruthie says check out Joshua Tree.
Joshua Tree. I've heard very good things about that. Hopefully we will get to see that. I don't know if we will, but I hope so.
So why don't we take a minute and tell about these wonderful items that the friends you're going with have.
Oh, yes. The friends that I'm going with, they actually have a business making tumblers. They are Miles of Mischief. You can see them on Etsy and TikTok. They make these tumblers. As you can see, I got a Bigfoot here. They can do any type of personalized design and decal for you as long as it's not a copywritten property. But go check them out.
Yeah,
they
they're
can
very
probably
cool
make you
people.
some great cryptid stuff.
They're very cool people. They do custom work, and they go live about, I think, like 9 p.m. Central every night.
It's actually 8 o'clock every night on TikTok.
Okay, not bad. But they're really cool people, and if you have time, go check out their wares. They can get you something that you'd really like. Okay, so getting into tonight's topic. Usually when we go live, y'all used to us being out in the woods somewhere. We're far from in the woods. I'm in my living room surrounded by these very hot light bulbs in the ceiling. And but tonight we thought we'd start things out a little bit differently. We figured we'd do our inaugural run of the show talking about kind of a part 2 to a video that me and my dad did some years ago. We did a book talking about our favorite cryptid and creepy books and the things that kind of just shaped us. And that was like 4 or 5 years ago, and figured it was time me and Gabby did a part. We've been planning one for a couple of years anyway and just never got around to it. And everything kind of lined out in the way where we figured, hey, let's do the first part of this and we'll just talk about the books that shaped us and made us who we are and whatnot. And I'm going to begin talking about this book here. This book, strangely enough, which is the inspiration for this
channel, the title of the podcast.
This podcast name. It was all inspired by this book here by C.B. Colby. Fantastic book. I love this book. This is probably, honestly, one of my favorite books of all time. And a little bit of a story on this. And I told somebody in the comments, I think earlier today, but my dad, when he was a little boy and he was in school, what was his teacher's name? He used to tell us about her all the time.
Miss Banks.
Miss Banks. He always talked very fondly of Miss Banks. And she brought this book into the classroom and would read stories to the children out of it. And, you know, there's multiple different types and stripes of stories in here. There's mysterious disappearances like the seabird, strange ghost stories, UFO stories, and then other things, not of a creepy nature, but just like a young boy going into a cave by the ocean, and he's goofing off in there, and he finds these little clay balls shoved in a hole in the rock in there. And he's like, "Hey, I'm gonna chuck these out in the water for whatever reason," and he chucks them out, and I guess he leaves, and he just sticks one in his pocket or forgot one in there, and he gets home, and some time passes, and one of those break open, and it's full of just like a big old beautiful diamond. And as it turns out, pirates years and years ago used to hide their treasure in caves like that, and they'd put them in little clay balls like that. But yeah, it's full of fantastic stories, and there's one in particular that we're going to read sometime tonight on the stream. We're not just going to talk about books about 30 minutes in. We're going to talk about something interesting that we found on one of our last trips to Land Between the Lakes. No, it's not a dogman before I get y'all's hopes up, but it was something I found to be very, very interesting. And scrambling around, I hope I grabbed all the books that I want to talk about tonight. But anyway, make sure you pick yourself up a copy of Strangely Enough. It's not going to disappoint you. And that feller, he had multiple books. There's another one of his around here somewhere called like The 100 Greatest Ghost Stories or something. But I also got his Weirdest People in the World. These are fantastic. And yeah, I highly recommend them. Very nostalgic for me in the way that my dad was always very fond of them. He kept it in his mind. And I can't remember if he specifically had to order it or if he found it at a library book sale and picked it back up. But anywho, moving on. Gep, why don't you show off one of these lovely books?
It would
here
be
and
a
tell
crime
about
to talk about any book podcast without having the greatest book ever, the Bible.
Absolutely.
This is what's special about this particular Bible. As all of you know, my dad, Johnny Henderson, the founder of this channel, this is his personal Bible. As you can see, it was well loved and well read.
It got very damaged because he used it so many times. The
As
cover fell off. Had to duct tape it
got
together.
all kinds of stuff marked.
Yeah, it was a very loved Bible. Always had it with him. Always used it. And that was passed down directly to Gabby. And, you
can even see my childish handwriting somewhere. Or actually, that's a different Bible I have. Someone with better handwriting wrote my name in it for me, and that's not going to show up in this sliding, but...
Well, one of us stuck a sticker in it or something.
Yep.
That's, one of the greatest the greatest book that ever is. But you got plenty of interesting, cool, and strange stories just in the Bible. What about Leviathan and Behemoth? Leviathan, the fire-breathing dragon. You got the fiery flying serpents. And I believe all those were not based, but mentioning specifically animals that actually existed.
Behemoth sounds like a brachiosaurus to me.
Yes, it's described as being the chief of the ways of God. Brachiosaurus would have been one of the larger animals to have existed. Not the largest one, but anyway. Jumping into it next, I want to show y'all a couple of books I got recently. I found this at the Goodwill. I love going to the Goodwill. You can find some fantastic things at Goodwill. And I picked this up, I guess not expecting a whole lot of it. It's called House of Evil. And man, this is one of the best books that I've ever read. Fantastic book. It's by Miss Margaret Ronan. And it really caught me by surprise, just the interesting stories that was in it. If anybody's familiar with the story of the Green People from like the...
Wasn't it the 1500s?
I believe so. Just these mysterious children that showed up one day. They were green. Green, I guess like the Hulk or something. But they were found at like the mouth of a cave. And they don't know really where they came from. But they were speaking a strange language. And this family had adopted these two weird green children.
They would only eat beans, too.
I forgot that part of it, but apparently the little boy, it was a little girl and a little boy. The boy was just heartbroken and crying, and he eventually died off. But the little girl survived, and they raised her as one of their own children. And eventually, she lost that green color. I'm assuming wherever she was from, she probably ate something that, in the same way, if you eat a bunch of carrots, you get orange. She probably ate something green and dyed her skin green. But anyway, they eventually taught her English, and she described where she came from. She said something to the effect of that she crossed the River of Light or something unusual like that. And eventually she just lost that greenish hue. She grew up and somebody married her. And at one point they went and explored and examined the cave that they came from, and they couldn't find any entrances to anything that would go to an underground colony or anything like that. But that's one of the ones that stick out in there. And yeah, check this out. There's one it called itself Geff. Just a strange little. And I want to quickly add, I kind of looked into some of these, and best as I can tell, they seem to be true stories, not just some nonsense somebody wrote up. They seem to be actually researched and allegedly true stories. This one here, it called itself Geff. This family moved into a house, and there's some strange, had to have been something demonic, but some little strange creature that would move around the house, and it would speak to them, and it
would even kill rabbits and bring it to them for supper.
Yeah, but it would get violently angry at times. Almost had like a Bell Witch type of feel from it. But it'd speak to them, and sometimes it would say something like, light that candle, and then it would stand in a place and they could see its shadow. And yeah, look that one up sometime. It called itself Geff. And recently, I loved that book so much, I had to acquire one of the other ones. I think she only wrote like 2 or 3 books. But Strange Unsolved Mysteries. I'm pretty early in on this one, so I don't have a whole lot of comments to make on it. But it's pretty good. It's not that bad. Let's see here. Mr. Sam Burton, your dad's Bible is cool. I got my dad's Bible. His dad was a preacher, and I got his sermon book. That's really awesome, man. That's a great heirloom.
Matt, looks like you got an interesting story. The area was run out of from the woods by a cryptid in the Daniel Boone Forest at 10 years has been off limits since 2015 under penalty of federal law. That's a fascinating story. I think it's very interesting that they would have it blocked off like that.
For a long time, we've wanted to go to the Daniel Boone.
Never been fortunate enough to, but
it's said to be like a big dogman hotspot. And I've heard 1 or 2 stories out of there before. I'd like to go if opportunity ever presented itself. I'd really like to go and see one of these places where one of those rake things are supposed to be seen. Don't know if I'll ever get lucky for that. Maybe unlucky is the word. But, yeah, absolutely. Let's see here. Sighting a month ago, Tater Knob Fire Tower area. Okay, that's awesome, man. Thank you for sharing that with us. Lady Raven Moon, hello. How you doing tonight? Thank y'all for tuning in with us. Ron Force Jr., how you doing, my friend? Tom Michael, Ken Parnell. Thank y'all again. Yep. You want to keep going with something else for these fine folk tonight?
So when I was a little girl, I loved reading the Little House on the Prairie books.
Yeah, you dragged me to a convention there for that recently.
And Land Between the Lakes. Well, not at Land Between the Lakes. At Patty's, close to the Land Between the Lakes. It was close.
There was no opportunity for dogman sightings.
It was at Patty's, close to Land Between the Lakes. Anyway, we're getting off topic. A Little House on the Prairie book may seem a little off topic on a podcast, but where I am going, there is a story in this book where Ma Ingalls is out in the dark feeding the animals, and she knows there's this big black shape there, and she thinks her cow won't go in. She's getting frustrated with the cow, won't go in, so she rears back in, she slaps it. Only when she slaps it does she realize it was actually a bear. Now, I just had to share that because think about how terrifying that would be if something like that happened with a Bigfoot or a dogman. You go outside, you think it's your cow, you're trying to deal with it. It's a monster.
Well, it's kind of interesting you bring that up, too. We interviewed a friend some years ago. I forget which year, probably would have been like 2018, 19, something like that. A fella named Jason, if I remember his story correctly, he was picking like blackberries or blueberries or something like that in the woods, and he stuck his hand in the bush, I guess, to get out some blueberries or whatever, and he felt something furry, and he looked, and this Bigfoot just stood up and looked right at him, and it just terrified him to death. Y'all go, if y'all have opportunity, have time, go look back up that video. It's called like Berry Patch Bigfoot or something like that. Very nice feller. I probably need to holler at him, see if he'd ever like to do that interview again for like modern interviews on the channel and whatnot. Keeping going further, I wanna plug a friend of mine's books. Got this last year from him, Dewey Edwards, Season of the Critters. From what I've read of this, it's a really good book. Talks about like the critter of Carr Creek and whatnot, and some good stories, Southern Kentucky, Tennessee stories and whatnot. This is a fantastic read from what I've read. And the critter of Carr Creek, it's very interesting. It's over fairly close to Nashville where that took place. It was described as looking kind of like a hyena or something like that, an Americanized hyena. And even today, people will sometimes describe seeing something in that general area that looks like a hyena running through the woods. And interestingly enough, that's over in Robertson County, which is Bigfoot, Bell Witch land over there, where if you remember the story historically, this Bell Witch appeared in the form of a black dog. So it's just kind of interesting tying the two together and whatnot. If y'all get opportunity, check out Season of the Critters.
You saw a bear, Everett Trouser? That's pretty amazing. I want to see a bear. I hope I see one when I go on my trip next month.
Now, Everett, that what you're talking about there about the fellow taking colloidal silver, I think I seen him too, or another gentleman. He kind of turned blue from taking so much colloidal silver. So really, the science adds up that I guess those little green children are eating something so inundated. I don't know, some green vegetable or something. Just ate so much of it, it turned their skin green. It would make sense. And then you could tie that thing back to the hollow earth theory, which you got a lot of people who are very fond of that theory and whatnot. Let's see. Let's start going in another direction here. I want to talk about one of my favorite authors, and I've talked about him a little bit before, but this guy's probably my favorite author of all time, even. A fellow named Roger Morneau. I've known about him my whole life. My family talked about him, and none of my family ever met him or anything, but we used to watch his videos and whatnot. He was from Montreal, Canada, and he had a very, very thick accent. Extraordinarily thick. You could barely understand the man. And but he had a very, very interesting story to tell. And I'm actually getting some clips ready. I'll let y'all hear a clip from him soon. But what made Roger Morneau so fantastic was in the late 40s, early 50s time frame, he was inducted into an elite class of spirit worshippers in Montreal, Canada. He was brought into some sort of group that worshiped demon spirits, and the high priest would sort of, as he would talk with them, kind of convey certain plans for certain events that they had planned and whatnot. And it's a very interesting story. He would describe that these people their order was like full of the elite people of the town and whatnot, lawyers and musicians, popular musicians, and people who had apparently made some sort of a deal with a demonic agency, and they do certain favors for them. There was a lawyer, or I guess rather he was a fellow who would write up the case stories for the law offices. He'd write up the articles or whatever, and he had a business where these people would pay him. And let me back up a little bit. They were in their temple, and Roger went down into the basement, and he started hearing this terrible click-clacking of typewriters off in another room. Clickety-clack, clickety-clack. And they went in that room, and there's just a couple of lines of typewriters, and they were typing by themselves. And this feller, the feller I was telling you about, he would stand there and he would stock the typewriters up with paper, and these demon spirits would actually type up whatever it was they needed. And they would do that job for him. He would do whatever the spirits asked for him. There was a doctor that was allegedly performing surgeries in ways people had never done before because he'd made a deal with the spirit Nehushta. Now, if you remember back in I think it was First or Second Kings, the brazen serpent that Moses had raised up in the wilderness that you would look on, and if you'd been bitten by a snake, it would looking at it, you'd have faith and it would cure you of the venom. The people of Israel had turned that into some sort of an idol, and a demon inhabited it, and they called it Nehushta. Well, if you think in the medical field, there's that famous symbol of the serpent with the pole, and there's the serpent wrapped around it. Well, maybe that just shows that people are still worshiping Nehushta. And to give a little bit extra background on Roger, he was in I think he said the Merchant Navy, and he got out of that and got a job in Montreal, Canada, and he somehow met up with a friend of his he used to know.
Hey, Letitia.
Hey, Letitia, how y'all doing? They met up with a friend of his, and he snuck up on him and said, "Morneau, you're alive. I thought you died." And he sort of goat roped him. He said, "Man, I got to tell you, I'm affiliated with a group that speaks with the spirits of the dead. How'd you like to talk to the spirit of your dead mother?" And it surprised Roger. He'd never thought about that, something like that ever in his life. And he sort of, called him a chicken and kind of goat roped him into going to one of these seances. And at that, they met a feller named, he called him George, but he was a very famous musician in the Montreal area. And very famous feller. And after one of these seances, George invited him, "Hey, you want to go get a drink or two? We'll go get some dinner somewhere." And Roger Morneau and his buddy went off with him and was shooting the breeze. And it was because of that encounter with him, he invited him into this organization that they were involved in. And things just kind of went from there. I'm going to show y'all a clip of Roger Morneau here. Very thick accent, but he's a fantastic guy.
And there was a very, very popular big band leader.
Jazz musician.
Band, yeah. Very famous. He played a lot in Montreal, Canada, Vancouver, the big cities. And one night we went to one of these seances, and he was with his wife. So we sat there, and we had our favorite alcoholic beverages, and as we talked, the band leader says, "How long have you fellas been involved with sorcery?" And he shocked us a little bit. And I said, "Exactly what do you mean?" "Well," he said, "what you people are doing, talking to the supposed spirits of the dead." He says, this is silly. So he said, the supposed spirits of the dead that you're talking with are demon spirits. You're fallen angels. And he says, "How do you think that I became famous the way that I am?" Well, I said, "You must have had some good luck." Well, he says, "There's no such thing as good luck." He says, "There's either some power working for you somewhere, or you don't get ahead in this world. Not in my type of occupation."
Okay, so that was Roger Morneau, and he's unfortunately dead now. He passed away, I think, like in the late 90s or something like that. But that was part of his story there. And he eventually, circumstances happen. It's a long story, but circumstances happen, and a coworker basically introduced him to the Lord and whatnot and got him involved, reaffirmed his faith in the Bible because he kind of grew up hating God, and he started doing Bible studies with him. He started doing a Bible study series called Brief Lessons for Busy People, and there's like 20. How many was it? It was 28 lessons, and Roger ended up doing all those lessons in like just a couple of days. They'd finished one lesson, which was about an hour, and he said, "Great, let's start on the next one." He was devouring these Bible studies, and by the end, he was just like, "Well, I know I can't be saved, but I at least know what the truth is now." And as things would go, Christ, the great miracle worker, he wasn't lost at all, and he devoted his life to Christ and whatnot. Started a beautiful prayer ministry. I don't have the book out here right now, but I got a hold of his books like last year, and I just
Hi, Jonested
devoured them.
Farm.
Oh, hey, Jonested Farm, how y'all doing? Hog, how y'all doing, everybody? Amanda. But those are fantastic books. Read about his prayer ministry, incredible answers to prayer. The Lord really did some great things working through him. And I'm going to start trying to get back on track here in a second. But one of the interesting things that happened with his prayer ministry was he had a big tower of paper. People would mail him in prayer requests. Roger, would you please pray for me? I'm having trouble. And he would pray for these people, and he'd stick it up in his little file tower. And he had, I think, like 17,000 or like 20,000 sheets of paper in it by the end. And he eventually ran out of toner for his printer, and he had no way of acquiring any more. He ran out of money, and he prayed, "Lord, I need my printer to work. Can you please provide some way for my printer to work?" And that printer apparently kept copying paper for about close to 2 years, and it didn't have any toner in it. They did a demonstration where they'd take the cartridge out and tap on it, show there was no toner in it whatsoever, but it printed for almost 2 years. Now, I'm going to try to speed up talking about him real quick, but while he was involved with that class of demon worshippers, the high priest told him, "We really want to get you involved, and one of the ways we want to show you that we want you, as the demon spirits are going to give you a gift in some way." And they ended up giving him the gift of clairvoyance. Roger Morneau liked going to the horse track races, and he said, "Well, I'd really like to know what the winning horse is going to be in the races." So he started having these dreams of who the winning horse would be, and he'd go to the racetrack, and he'd bet on that horse, and it would win. And then he'd come back again, and he'd bet on another horse that he dreamed about, and it would win again. And this happened for multiple events until one day he went back to the horse racing area, and they called him in. The bosses who ran it, they called him in, and they threatened his life, saying, "Don't you ever come back here. I don't know how you're getting this information, but we don't want you back here anymore." And I'm going to show y'all that clip. It's only 24 seconds.
Reading that the spirits were offering different gifts and powers, and at one point you received the power to get dreams about what horse to bet on.
Oh, yeah.
And you won. The bookies finally told you to stop coming because you won several days in a row. Is that right?
They told me that they were going to put a bullet in me. So when I heard that, I said, "The guy, I won't come back here."
But every race that you bet on, you won for several days.
Here's what happened.
Anyway, that's what happened there. And but yeah, sometime check out his book. Charmed by Darkness is the modern version. Basically it has some added information, and the old version is a trip into the supernatural. And I'm going to read you 2 quotes from that book real quick, and then we're going to move on to something else, because I'm sure everybody's like, "Quit talking about this guy." George, the fellow that originally inducted him into it, this is what he had to say. This is what his belief on the spirits were. This is what he described who the spirits of the dead really were. "That evening, as we were driving home, George stated his belief that when a person dies, he or she is completely dead, and that when people claim to hold communications with the spirit of the dead, they are being fooled by demon spirits impersonating their departed loved ones." That's from page 61. Little bit of fine font. George smiled and said, "If you find this impressive, wait until you hear the spirits reproduce the voices of people you've known and have been dead a long time. That really blows one's mind." Now, if you think back, I talk about this all the time, but it all kind of adds up. If you remember in the old Bell Witch story, one of the most well-known things that the spirit would do is it would imitate people's voices. And it was known to have at one point, there was 2 preachers preaching in opposite directions, 13 miles apart. one guy preaching a sermon here, another guy preaching a sermon over here. And I think it was while the sermons were going on, the Bell Witch was impersonating them perfectly back at the Bell cabin, what they were saying. So it's absolutely possible. I truly believe that when people have incidents with the spirits of the dead, it's something of a demonic nature impersonating them. And I believe that's perfectly what the Bible describes. It says, "For the living know that they shall die, but the dead know not anything, neither have they any more reward in anything that's done under the sun." So I believe Roger, his story is absolutely correct. I believe that when you die, it's described as like a dreamless sleep. My dad, he died years ago of a heart attack back in like 2005 or something.
Officially, we would say he flatlined.
Yeah,
because they were able to resuscitate him that time.
I'm taking up all the airtime. You tell about that story. You know it.
But anyway, he had a heart attack and he flatlined, and they were able to resuscitate him. But he said that death, so to speak, was a just deep, dreamless sleep, as the Bible says. He was having just some type of dream, like he was asleep, and then it just kind of faded out. And then he said he wouldn't have known if he'd been dead 10 minutes or 10 years. It was just like nothing. But he would always say there was no light at the end of the tunnel. Grandma and Elvis, it's just asleep.
He would always add, "I got to give death 2 enthusiastic thumbs up. I woke up, felt like I'd had the best sleep of my life." So, yeah. And real quick, we don't have long to talk about it, even longer than we've already talked about. But any of those verses on death that we've talked about, if you want to screenshot this later so you can see, I'm going to put them up on the screen. Those verses are why we believe death is like a dreamless sleep. If you want to screenshot that later, you can. We're going to move on now, and let's answer a couple of these things in chat here. Chat, how y'all doing tonight? Do y'all live close to the land between the lakes? Yes, we do. We were actually there last night with a close friend of ours, and she came into town and hadn't planned on going up there, but she said she was up here for only a couple of days, and she said, "Please, you got to take me up there." And I was like, "Well, I guess when I get off work, we can ride up there and I can show you a couple places." And so that's where we were last night, showing her a couple of the places up there. She really wanted to see it.
We're something like 40 minutes away, give or take, wouldn't you say?
Well, about 40, 50 minutes to the actual south entrance. But when you get to the trace, long trip up. But, yeah, I had a good time last night.
Use the bathroom at the welcome station, because you're not finding another for a while.
No, you are not. But that's where we were, and let's see here. Let's see. That stone behind Elijah is really cool. So let me get out of the way. My fat butt's blocking that thing. That is a replica of a drogue stone that was found over in Turkey, around, I think it was around Noham Gemsi, Turkey. And a woman who's basically like a grandmother to us, she made that. And over in that area, Noham Gemsi, Turkey, it's in the same area where Ron Wyatt was believed to have found or brought light and news to the Noah's Ark site over there. That site is extremely fascinating. And
you actually have a framed portrait of the stuff if you want to show them, Elijah.
Well, I don't want to.
You know, I carry
my way over there to get that.
Fair enough.
I got a small picture of Ron Wyatt there with that Ark site. If you've ever looked into that, it seems to really add up like it very well could be Noah's Ark. We've held pieces of that before, and even a giant human thumb bone that was found in the area. But the wood there, it's almost like it's laminated. That's a weird way to say that, but it's got a very interesting feel to it. And they've actually core drilled into the side of that boat-shaped object before and found, I think it was cat hair, antlers, animal dung, and something almost like a fiber optic wire. Let's see. Mr. Everett says, "Where do y'all live?" We live in Clarksville, Tennessee, and Clarksville, Tennessee is not good. We like a lot of nature and whatnot. Clarksville is a lot of city. Now, not a whole lot to do here, but if you like restaurants, there's plenty to go do. There's plenty of restaurants around every corner, red lights, traffic, and restaurants. That's the review I give to Clarksville, Tennessee. My family comes originally from over in East Tennessee, over in Dayton, Tennessee. It's all mountains, beautiful, beautiful land over there. They don't got that over here. And we live next to the Cumberland River, and they got a sewage treatment plant somewhere around here, and it usually stinks. Not big fans of Clarksville. Oh, let's see.
Eli, did you ever actually get around to explaining what that thing was?
Oh, I didn't, did I?
You were just
Yeah,
explained about the arc records and then completely forgot to finish your thought.
Things go on one ear and out the other for me. I'm easily distracted and whatnot. That is they found about, I think, like 12 of those around in the general area where that boat-shaped object was found. And they believe it was probably a drogue stone. It was probably tied to the boat in some manner to where when the waves would hit it, they would hang off the side of the boat and kind of stabilize it so it didn't flip over or anything like that. They figure it was probably a system to keep it upright and balanced, so to speak. But they found a bunch of those over there. There's crosses carved into some of the ones they found over there, and they're absolutely massive.
Normally they have 8, but the artist forgot to add one of them, so this one has 7.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, we have a book by that artist on this table. Gabby, you tell all about that. I'm going to drink this beautiful lemon water.
Absolutely. Do you guys remember a video we did about a year or so ago, The Braying Beast of Indian Mound? This is her book. She's got all kinds of childhood stories and stories as a young woman growing up in this area and just her early life. So if you are interested in Lewis and Beatrice's story in The Braying Beast of Indian Mound, check out Old Trenton Road, available on Amazon.
Now, if you remember, Beatrice was talking about when she was a little girl, she was playing with a friend over around these trees, and they're climbing trees, and they seen something coming through the trees, like hanging in the branches. They said, that looks like a monkey coming through the trees. And they could see the feet. I think she ended up describing that it had she said monkey feet, but I think she kind of conveyed it looked like hairy human feet or something. And to this day, she figures she probably seen like a juvenile Sasquatch or something like that up there. And very interesting story. But that's her life story. If you ever want to support her and read about her life, it's called Old Trenton Road. We'd appreciate it if you supported her and whatnot. So we are at the 47-minute time frame, and I want to show y'all about something we found in Land Between the Lakes fairly recently. If y'all remember, sometime back, we uploaded a video about a allegedly haunted cabin in Land Between the Lakes. It's in an area where you got to hike to it. It's a decent walk off into the woods, but we went there a couple of years ago because a friend of mine told me about it, that her brother's friends had some experiences up there, and I actually got to meet her brother at a Bigfoot conference gathering.
I would say really more of just a get together.
The Bigfoot meet and greet that happened up in Land Between the Lakes fairly recently, he was up there. His organization is Spring Creek Archaeology, for anybody that wants to holler at him. But let's see. I'm going to show this video to y'all real quick so y'all have the whole backstory. I don't have to retell it and whatnot. Okay, y'all. Elijah here. And
Gabrielle here.
Cryptid Studies Institute. We're in Land Between the Lakes right now. Enjoying this beautiful Sabbath day. Just a gorgeous day out. Sun is shining. The wind is blowing. Just a really nice day.
Perfect day for a hike.
We're doing a little bit of exploring in the park, and we thought we'd come and see this area that was shared to us by a friend. What almost sounds like a haunted cabin in Land Between the Lakes. It's called the Will Flora Cabin, and it looks like Land Between the Lakes' Evil Dead cabin, to be quite honest. A old friend of my dad, he went to school with her. She was actually his nurse while he was in the hospital, told us about this place. Her brother's friends went up here camping, and they had a whole lot of just weird stuff happening. About 3 o'clock in the morning, they came up here, and they said something kicked the door off the hinges, and Sure enough, there's the door sitting in here when we got in.
Show them the damaged hinge is on the door.
Yeah, you can see like where see all the wood pulled out in here and everything. And even the screws are broke off in that one. They mentioned something about, I think, kids giggling up in the attic, weird sounds outside.
They do have an attic.
Yeah, they do have an attic. It's either kids giggling or people walking up in the attic. I think both of that was going on, actually. And old sounds by the old well outside. We haven't gone and seen the well out there yet. But what makes it especially interesting, that door off the hinges, is they said there was snow on the ground at the time. This is weeks ago. And there's no tracks in the snow or anything like that. So who can say, but we've been wanting to see it for a little bit of time. And here it is. Actually real nice, to be quite honest.
Someone's left the painted rock right there.
They've done what?
They've left the painted rock.
Okay, nice. Let's see here. Gabby, you want to walk out back and see if there's an old well?
Yes.
We'd actually kind of like to come and do a dog man hunt here at some point. Bigfoot hunt or something.
It's a very long hike in.
Oh my goodness, felt like a real long hike in. Maybe I'm just unfit, but it felt like a long walk. Really, no real well to speak of that I can tell. Yeah. I don't want to get in all this grass and get ticks on me anyway. They're starting to come out, so we'll just ignore any potential well. But yeah, apparently this is a fairly known spot. People come up here and camp in the winter time, and when we got up here, there's a couple of ladies who'd ridden some horses up here. So it does get some traffic up here. I don't know, it's a pretty interesting story. Apparently it's been remodeled a couple of times, so it still stays standing. You found the well?
Maybe. I found something. It's not very deep. Just fell in a bit in the well.
Ah, yes. Old cistern or something. So really all the details that were shared to us seem to match up, that for a sound there was something here, you know what I mean? An attic, a door off the hinges, a well. A real beautiful spot down here. It'd be cool to just come and camp here anyway. Ironically, somebody's got a monster rock here. That's kind of funny. Well, you want it, Gab?
Sure.
All right, well. I guess that's about all we got right now on LBL's Haunted Cabin.
We hope you enjoyed seeing this as much as we enjoyed seeing it.
Yeah. So, short video, but hopefully y'all find it interesting, and there's stuff on the way, y'all. Gabby ran off and left me, and now she's making a bunch of noise off in the kitchen. Sounded like she knocked over a bunch of stuff, too. So,
I just took where I sat right in front of my tea cubby, y'all.
Nice. Well, anyway, y'all remember when that eclipse happened a few weeks ago? We were up there for that eclipse, and my friend, he was up there. We were all together and whatnot, and he's like, "Hey man, can we go see that cabin if we got time?" I was like, "Yeah, we can hike up there and go check it out." So we went up there and checked it out. And I want to add, before we get into this new information, me and Gabby
It was Easter.
It was Easter. Was it last year?
I think so.
Okay, probably last Easter. We went and we spent the night in that cabin there. We don't do paranormal stuff, but we thought maybe it'd be a good area to do a dog man outing and whatnot. So we spent the night there. Can't say there's for sure anything, but one thing I made sure to do was I brought some tools with me so I could repair that door and put it back on the hinges, put some new screws in it, screw it back to the frame so we can have some security, close the door, keep it shut during the night. And a few weeks ago when we were up there for that eclipse, we found this. Come on.
Very not normal, right?
Flip the nails out and everything. That's all your nails.
Yep, that's my screws I brought. Well, oh wow, it's even bent.
Oh wow, so something kicked it hard.
Well, I mean, I guess it's possible. It just kind of possible. It's natural.
Like people opening and closing it too much.
Something, but that's interesting.
Something took the parts.
Something took the little table that was in here.
Oh yeah.
Well, someone. I don't think it was something, but you know. But yeah, these screws are bent.
That's different.
That's good screws too. They're still where the last ones are broke off in the frame. Does something not like the door staying on here? There's the bolt that I put on.
You want to sign war criminal?
Yeah, I will.
Here you go, Pip.
There we go. Look,
Elijah gonna put me, Elijah, and Gabby and war criminal in there.
There we go.
Get a visitor.
There's the dates we were here last, and here's the date we camped. You needed a mug of tea for the podcast?
I did need a podcast tea. It's English Rose, and I put it in a monster cup.
Aren't you ritzy?
I am ritzy.
So we went back up there, and the door was off the hinges again. Don't know how. Don't know the story behind that. But I found it very interesting that the screws that I brought along, they were bent in the hinge. Somehow it had been hit with such tremendous force, or something happened to bend those nice screws. They were like the Starbit screws. They were good screws, but something bent those. Somehow they got bent. I don't know if there's any natural explanation for that, but I thought it was weird enough that it should be shown and mentioned, especially when something came through initially and allegedly kicked the door off the hinges.
Frankly, you seem offended that something undid your handiwork.
And I'm going to have to go back up there and fix that darn thing again. So I'm going to have to get craftier next time. That door frame's not doing so good. But yeah, that was a very interesting thing, and we simply had to share that with y'all. Last night when we were in Lamb Between the Lakes, it was quiet. There was nothing there, so nothing to tell y'all about there. Just a lot of hanging out like a hare in a biscuit, so to speak. I guess we're getting close to an hour, so I guess we'll keep going. We were the friends that we went with. No, I'm wording this wrong. The friends that she's about to go to Oregon with, we went with them a while back to
Rock City.
Rock City, that was the place. And I just kind of wanted to briefly show this. I haven't read it yet, but I wanted to show y'all. Ghosts of Lookout Mountain. And I looked it up, and this actually has some value on it, but I guess you don't find it in many places other than the Rock City gift shop or something. They had it up there.
It's cheaper at the Rock City gift shop.
Yes, it was like $11.95, but it's like $50 on eBay when I looked it up. So I don't know if that's a specific book up there, but I figured I'd show that out. Now, we talked briefly about the Bohemian Grove earlier, and we're going to talk about it again. Gabby got me this book, and this was a pretty awesome little read if you're interested in that subject about what they're doing up there. This kind of goes into some of the history on the area and the organization. This is by Mark Dice. Anybody that knows him, he's conservative, isn't he?
Yes, Mark
Okay.
Dice is conservative.
Make me sound like an idiot or something. But very, very strong Republican and whatnot. But he's got a series of books like this. This one was very good. And Gabby, distract him for a few minutes.
Let's see, Amanda Legg. No, we have not had the pleasure of being to West Virginia yet, but I understand it's very beautiful. I'd love to be able to see it in the fall of the year when all the leaves are changed. Everett, you've got a friend who lives in Chattanooga. It's a beautiful area up there. Our dad's hometown is roughly an hour from there. And I've been to Chattanooga. I love the aquarium there. I'd like to go again soon. I haven't been in quite some time, but I do love going to it.
I'm back. I've returned. I acquired this fairly recently. This is a program flyer from the Bohemian Grove in 2011. Found it online, and it's folded over like that. You can tell somebody, I guess, folded it up and stuck it in their bag. But inside, it's got a Bohemian Grove 2011 program of special events. Got the owl inside there. But I'm not sure if y'all be able to see this or not. Somewhere up in here, in them blurry letters, it talks about, got the time for the cremation of care. I know you can't really see that. But the cremation of care was on Saturday, July 16th, 9:15 p.m. Lakeside. Everybody familiar with that story knows about the cremation of care and all that. All right, Gab, you take some of the slack.
All right,
I'm gonna
let's
drink
see.
more water.
One really interesting thing I brought to show you, Mysteries of the Unexplained.
Ooh, that's a good book.
My dad had a copy of this when I was a kid. This isn't his copy. We have his copy somewhere, but I don't know where it is, and mine was easier to dig out. But I always loved looking at this book when I was a kid. There's so many unique stories and pictures all about, the Loch Ness Monster or Bigfoot or creepier stories. Let me see if I can find you guys a really cool picture in here.
Y'all remember that feller some years back? I mean, it was probably
Look right there. There's a cool illustration of a Bigfoot.
Y'all remember the guy that got kidnapped by the Bigfoot and he gave him tobacco and it made him sick and he was able to escape? That one's in there.
But I was always just fascinated by this book when I was a child.
Hawk, thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you so
Hawk.
very
We
much. We
appreciate you
appreciate
very
that.
much.
For more books or whatever you need it for. We really appreciate that. We really do. Oh, was that St. Germain?
What? I don't know.
Oh, I don't think it is. Never mind.
Kind of looks like him, though.
Sorry, I researched the Comte de Saint Germain a lot, and that looked like him in there. I got that book here, too.
Look, guys, there's a section on spontaneous human combustion in here. This book has all kinds of stuff, so highly recommended. It's Mysteries of the Unexplained, a Reader's Digest. But this is one of our earliest experiences with books of a bizarre nature, I'd say.
Yeah, I just sit and I stayed specifically largely to the Bigfoot Loch Ness Monster section, but I just sit there and just look at all the pictures as a real young boy and I absolutely loved that. I've always been very fascinated by like the sea monster stuff and the things that could be living dinosaurs and whatnot. Always been very fascinated by that. My dad, as we're growing up, taught and preached creation science, which involves a lot of cryptozoology with like living dinosaurs, how they tie into the Bible and whatnot. Branching into our next book, it connects to all this. It's a book Gabby got me some years back called In Witch-Bound Africa. Now, why would I want something like this? This is a book by Frank Melland. He was, I forget exactly what he was, but he wrote a book about an account of the primitive Kaunde tribe and their beliefs. And this is interesting because it has a chapter specifically on the Kangamato. Now, if you don't know what the Kangamato is, it's described as like a pterodactyl-like thing.
Hey, Scott Walker, thanks for tuning
Scott.
in.
How you doing, brother? Thank you for tuning in with us.
You were telling about the Kangamato.
Yes, the Kangamato. But it's described as looking like a little pterodactyl, and the people over there are very terrified of it. Supposedly, it's very vicious. People that get close don't usually survive. And let's read a quote from that book we got here. I went ahead and prepared one, a good quote on it. Oh.
Did you not prepare it?
There was an issue earlier that I accidentally unplugged my computer. That might be why I don't have that picture in there.
You didn't unplug it. Grendel unplugged it.
No, that happened the other day.
Oh, so you did it too.
Oh, wait. Aha! I'm not an idiot. Or as much of an idiot. All right. I asked, what is the Kangamato? The answer was a bird. What kind of bird? Oh, well, it isn't a bird, really. It is more like a lizard with membranous wings like a bat. Further inquiries disclosed the facts that the wing spread was from 4 to 7 feet across, that the general color was red. It was believed to have no feathers, but only skin on its body, and was believed to have teeth in its beak. These last 2 points no one could be sure of, as no one ever saw a Kangamato close and lived to tell the tale. I sent for 2 books which I had at my house containing pictures of pterodactyls, and every native present immediately and unhesitatingly picked it out and identified it as the Kangamato. Let me close that picture up there. Very
I find it
fascinating.
interesting that it says it's red. We know an individual, and I'm not going to name any names because that's their story to tell, but they claim to have seen a pterodactyl, and they said it was red. So I think, just notice that and think it's interesting that it was the same color as the Kangamato.
Not far from us here in the South, actually. There's another story kind of like that. I forget if it was Papua New Guinea, but there's a creature called the ropin that's described as like a pterodactyl up there. And it's supposed to be bioluminescent. Like when people see it, it'll be like a ball of light flying through the sky and whatnot. And Destination Truth, some years back, they were down there looking for it. And they actually got a video of like a ball of light going through the sky. So they may have filmed it. But anyway, that's why I got this in Witchbound in Africa. And it's got a whole chapter on that if you want to read more about the Kangamato. Now, before I go into this,
Eli, Amanda has a question about the shirts.
So, some years back, me and my dad, we had these designed and made up. And unfortunately, I ran out of them. They're very cool. They glow in the dark. I need to get some more made up or find a way to supply them to where people can get them if they want them. Or if I need more Cryptid Studies clothes, I can get them. But we've had them for quite a while. There's actually a Dogman variant that we made up, but as you can see, we both got the Bigfoot one tonight. Yeah, these ones technically are personal shirts, but we had some at one time we were selling and giving out. We just ran out. Let's see.
I did recently attempt to have a couple of Beast of LBL shirts made up. You can apparently make shirts on Temu, but the supplier I chose, pixelated design, it didn't work out good, so we'll try again.
And those sizes over there are different, so I put on the extra large, which normally works for me, and it was like, it wasn't far off from being like a Winnie the Pooh shirt, pulled right up. Scott Walker, are there still Bigfoots in the Patterson-Gimlin film site, or have they moved on, or they're just not there anymore? They're still in the air, or is it very rare for them? Well, I think that's generally considered a Bigfoot hotspot in that area, because it isn't, correct me if I'm wrong, wasn't where that was filmed. Isn't that where the Sierra Sounds were recorded? I think that's considered to be like a fairly hot spot for activity, and you're going through there.
I am. I don't know yet if I'll get to camp there or not, but we're definitely seeing a museum there, so wish me luck, y'all.
Are y'all going to see the creek where it actually was walking and whatnot?
I don't know, maybe.
Okay. Cool beans. Amanda, you have a blessed night too.
Thank you so much for tuning in.
Thank you so much for tuning in and spending some time with us tonight.
Everett says try TeePublic. We'll have to remember that.
Okay. Cool beans, y'all. Another book that's in the vein of like living dinosaurs and cryptids of that nature is this book. And I think I mentioned this when me and my dad did that video years ago. This is considered to be a rare book now, but we got it from Dr. Kent Hovind, A Living Dinosaur. And I want to read y'all an interesting quote out of here. This book was basically Roy Mackle's quest when he went down there on an expedition to find the Mokele Mbembe, which is described to be like a sauropod dinosaur. They would take pictures down there of different animals, including some dinosaurs, and show the natives and say, is this the Mokele Mbembe? And they'd show them like an elephant. No, it's nothing like that. Is it this? They'd show a picture of a rhino. No, it's not that. And they'd show something that was like an apatosaurus, or people might be more familiar with the term brontosaurus. And they say, yes, that's it. That's Mokele Mbembe. And I think the name Mokele Mbembe actually means he that stoppeth the flow of rivers or something like that. But this book is detailing that, and it's got some stories of some other creatures that are in the area. And I want to read y'all a quote from this book here. I've always thought this was interesting. I don't think it's quite Mokele Mbembe, but he relays a story that he got a hold of something that was down there. And let's see here. Coming back to the lake, we beheld the frightful monster that I shall now describe. The head appeared over bushes 10 feet tall. It was about the size of a beer keg and was shaped like that of a taper, as if the snout was used for pulling things or taking hold of them. The eyes were small and dull and set in like those of an alligator. Despite the half-dried mud, we could see that the neck, which was very snake-like, only thicker in proportion, was rough, knotted like an alligator's side rather than his back. We could see part of the body, which I should judge to have been 8 or 9 feet thick at the shoulders, if that word may be used, since there were no forelegs, only some great heavy clawed flippers. Fling threw up his rifle and let drive at the head. I'm sure that he struck between the eyes and that the bullet must have struck something bony, horny, or very tough, for it cut twigs from a tree higher up and further on after it glanced. I shot as Fling shot again and aimed for the base of the neck. The animal had remained perfectly still till now. It dropped its nose to the spot at which I had aimed and seemed to bite at it, but there was not blood or any sign of real hurt. They seemed to annoy the creature, but not to work any injury. Suddenly it plunged forward in a silly, clumsy fashion. The Indians nearly upset the dugout getting away, and both Flang and I missed the sight as it entered the water. I should say that the creature was 35 feet long. And that's from this book, A Living Dinosaur. If you can find it, get a hold of it. Cool book to have in your library. And Gabby, we're an hour and 12 minutes in here. Are there any more books you want to showcase?
Let's see what I still got here.
Doesn't seem like we talked about much books, so I guess I jabbered through most of this.
You did. So this one doesn't really have anything to do with cryptids, but this is a book I always loved as a kid. Really, the one I loved was, this is a sequel. I always loved the Bailey School kids growing up. It was a book about third graders who'd find out that there were grown-ups in town seemed weird. They'd think they were monsters, and the book that this is a sequel to, which is missing actually, is called Werewolves Don't Go to Summer Camp. And I love that book when I was a kid. My grandma gave it to me. I read it a lot. Basically, they think their camp counselor is a werewolf. This one is about that guy's cousin. I haven't read this one in years, but they thought he was a werewolf too, and they're always left off not knowing if it's a monster or not. But
didn't any of them confirm if they were the werewolf or not?
It never confirmed. It left you wondering, but I just thought that was a neat little tidbit to show you. This is probably some of my earlier experiences reading monster books.
Heck yeah. Heck yeah. Gabs, Mr. Scott Walker asked, would you please try and get to the exact location where the Patterson Bigfoot sighting was?
I don't know if I will be able to, but if I'm able to, I would certainly love to try.
When she comes back in 2 weeks, we're going to hopefully put together a good video about all the spots she hit up there and have like a big Cryptid Studies Institute goes coastal or something and something. Let's see here. Do you guys possibly believe that could be dinosaurs living today, like many years ago was a further of a Brachiosaurus somewhere in Canada, And how cool will it be to see a living T-Rex? I'd love to see a
I
living
would
T-Rex.
love to see that.
I do believe there's some stragglers alive today. I believe in biblical creation, which, general consensus is that dinosaurs died out millions and millions of years ago. But, we still find in dinosaur fossils soft dinosaur tissue, which, if the world truly was millions and millions of years ago, that is impossible for that soft tissue to still be around. And we went to a lecture the other night where they were talking about all the different things, the types of soft tissue that's been found in dinosaurs, and it's a lot of stuff. And they were saying something to the effect of that carbon-14, it could only be like a maximum of like 80,000 years old. That's like the max it could be.
Yet it's been found in dinosaur fossils.
It's been found in dinosaur fossils. I saw with all the strange cryptids out there that people describe seeing, and the ancient carvings of what appear to be dinosaurs on rock walls, and stories with dragons and such. I believe that there probably are some stragglers today, but they're very, very rare. Let's see. What a cool book about a summer camp. Yeah, she always liked that one. Werewolves always fast.
I still have it somewhere. I don't know. It's not with the other Bailey Skull Kid books, so I'll have to find it. My bookshelves are an organizational nightmare. I'm not even going to lie. It's somewhere.
Whoops, this channel is just about werewolf, not Sasquatch. No, my friend, it's about all cryptid stuff. Dogman, Bigfoot, Loch Ness Monster, the Comte de Saint-Germain. We try to cover a lot of subjects, and that's why we called this podcast Strangely Enough. Because if we call it like the Cryptid Studies Institute podcast, we're sort of bound to do stuff cryptids. But if we call it Strangely Enough, we can talk about basically any topic under the umbrella of strange and mysterious. So we can talk to y'all about a lot of different things, have a lot of different types of guests and whatnot. And it's not always just going to be me blabbing behind a camera and whatnot. We're going to have some cool guests and whatnot.
Sometimes there'll be live woods investigations.
Yes, I hope to get out in the woods next Saturday night if all goes to plan. Let's see here. I'm from the Humboldt County and drive through quite often. And yes, they're still there. That's from Miss Linda Taylor. You can stop at the museum in Willow Creek and ask them about the recent sightings. That's fantastic.
The museum in Willow Creek is on our list.
You should see if they'll let you interview them while you're up there.
Maybe I could.
All right, folks, we're at 1 hour and 17 minutes, so we're going to start trying to wind this down a little bit.
Elijah, do you have any closing thoughts?
Yes, we're going to close it out with a story from Strangely Enough. I feel like that's a proper way to really get into this, to open up this series and whatnot. And we're going to read today New England's Darkest Day. All of us have known dark days, but one of the most unusual dark days happened back in the spring of
Everett
1780.
Hatcher, we are brother and sister.
No, that'd be illegal and creepy for us. This is Tennessee we're in, but those cliches just aren't true, or at least I hope not. But no, sister, not wife.
Annoying baby brother.
Very annoying.
Yes, very. Read your book.
Back in the spring of 1780, on May 19th to be exact, you can find references to it in many New England town histories that go back that far, and in old books on unusual physical happenings. It has never been completely explained, although there was probably some scientific and sensible explanation for it. The facts alone, however, are intriguing. You can imagine the terror of the citizens. They had no radios or other means of contacting the outside world to find out just how far the darkness had spread. May 19th dawned as bright and clear as usual, except that there appeared to be a haze to the southwest. One town history reports that it was raining. This haze grew darker, and soon the whole sky was covered with a thick cloud, which was traveling northeast rapidly. Excuse me. It reached the Canadian border by mid-morning. Meanwhile, the eastern part of New York, as well as Maine, New Hampshire, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, and Connecticut, were becoming darker. By 1 o'clock, some sections were so dark that white paper held a few inches from the eyes couldn't be seen. It was as dark as a starless night. Apprehension soon turned to panic. Schools were dismissed, and lanterns and candles were lighted in homes and along the streets. One New Hampshire town history reports that chickens and birds went to roost, and that everything appeared through a kind of Egyptian darkness, whatever an Egyptian darkness might be. Many people gathered in churches to pray and await what they assumed was the judgment day. However, in one city, at least business went on as usual, thanks to a rugged individual. In Hartford, Connecticut, the state legislature was in session. By noon, the members were unable to even see each other. The meeting threatened to break up completely in panic, but one of the members arose and addressed the speaker. Mr. Speaker, this is either the day of judgment or it is not. If it is not, there is no need for the adjourning. If it is, I desire to be found doing my duty. I move that candles be brought in and that we proceed to business. And so the session continued, with only a few leaving for home in fear and trembling. That night, the darkness continued, and it was noted that by the light of lanterns, everything seemed to have a faint greenish hue. A full moon, due to rise at 9, did not show until after 1 a.m. when it appeared high in the sky and blood red. Shortly afterwards, stars began to appear, and the following morning the sun was as bright as ever, after 14 hours of the strangest darkness ever to panic staunch New Englanders. And that's just one of the fascinating stories that's in there. I love that. Take turn reading. All right, Gab, do you want to read one?
Well, sure. Why don't you pick me a good one?
Pick you a good
one. Hi,
one.
Roy.
Herbert, how you doing, my friend? Let's see. Yeah, you pick one. I picked that one. Mr. Scott Walker, if they do find the Loch Ness Monster, what would they do with her? Would they capture her or study her? I believe SeaWorld might take. Honestly, probably somebody. I don't think that the governments of the world would ever allow it to be truly discovered, because it would conflict with the theory of evolution and whatnot. If you got dinosaurs living today, then they didn't all die out millions of years ago. So I think somebody would probably either kill it or shoot. You know how the elitists are, probably put it in a private collection somewhere. Herbert Blevins, I really love the book. Great stories inside. Lojo, I get along with my brother just as well. The trolls are out in mass. Oh, shoot.
Here's a story, y'all. The Seabird. Phantom ships and vanished crews have always added to the mystery of the seven seas. On a strip of land near Newport, Rhode Island, there is a little settlement known as Easton's Beach. Only a few farmers and some fishermen and their families made their homes there. One day in 1880, a fisherman working on his boat near shore suddenly sighted a full-rigged ship of good size heading straight for land. He thought it very odd that such a large ship under full sail should make no attempt to turn away or head along the coast. But it was coming steadily and directly for shore, and in the onshore breeze. He called to the other fishermen nearby and ran to the settlement above the beach to tell the rest of the people about the approaching vessel. Soon everyone was on beach, watching in helpless silence as the strange ship came on through, determined to wreck itself, its canvas straining and flags snapping on the mastheads. With horror, the spectators heard the grating of the hull of the bottom as it struck. Yet the ship still bore down, keeping straight on course as it cut a keel groove in the sandy ocean bottom. When it finally came to rest, it was still on an even keel, with the bowsprit almost over their heads. Then they recognized the ship. It was the Seabird, under the able command of John Husham. It had been to Honduras, and was expected that very day in Newport. Not a sound came from the docks. At once the crowd went on board to explain the mystery, but it only deepened. Coffee still boiled on the galley stove. Food for breakfast was still on the table. All navigation instruments and charts were in order. Yet there was no trace of the crew, nor any indication of when, why, or where they had gone. The only living thing aboard the Seabird was a mongrel dog shivering on the deck. The sea had been calm, the breeze fine, and the Seabird had been almost exactly on course for Newport. The crew must have left only shortly before the ship appeared on the horizon. But why should they have left the ship when so close to their home and family? Only heaven and a mongrel dog knew what happened aboard the Seabird that sunny morning.
That's a good one.
I've always been fascinated by that story and wondered what could have happened to the crew.
That's kind of like the Mary Celeste, too, in a way. Well, let's see here. Out of all the Goosebumps books out there, I think The Werewolf of Fever Swamp is the scariest story and episode of Goosebumps ever.
We always love that episode.
That was a really good one. Fantastic ones. Thank you, Herbert. I'll hopefully have more t-shirts at some point. These are some we made up years ago, and we sold some and had a few for ourselves. So unfortunately, I don't have any at the moment. Well, folks, I reckon we're almost an hour and 30 minutes, so I guess we're gonna start trying to gradually close this thing down. Gabby, you got any closing words for tonight for this first episode of Strangely Enough?
Well, I just want to say thank you, everyone, so much who tuned in and listened. Everyone who donated. We hope you keep coming back. We have good plans for you in the future, so just keep listening, and thank you.
All right, that was good. I guess on my end, thank y'all so much for watching, spending some time with us. I felt like the time went very quick. I guess I was jabbering the whole time. I hope to be going live next Saturday night at 8:30 p.m. Central. It'll just be me, but I'm hoping to get actually out in the woods and do some research and not just be behind the table. Actually be something kind of interesting for y'all. Gabby will be in Oregon or California, whichever one.
Or Washington. I'll be somewhere cool, hopefully.
So it'll be a couple weeks before we see her again, probably. But I'm going to try to make sure y'all got some interesting things for a few weeks. And with that being said, I reckon that's all for me. Thank y'all very much, and y'all have a good night.
Thank you, and good night.
And thank y'all so much again, Hawk, for the donation. That was very nice of you. Thank you very much. And y'all have a good night. Let's see here.
Would it be the button that says end stream?
It probably